Alright, Theme Right Fits. We are back here on, what is it, 22nd February 2024. And, no, 29th, 29, not 22nd. A whole week off, yeah. But it's been a crazy week. And just to update you guys on what's going on with Israel, for one, a crazy development we had in the story was, I believe, yesterday, an aid convoy was going into Gaza, right? Bringing food for the starving people, and there were a bunch of Gazans crowded around the convoy, and the IDF decided to open fire because they were, and I quote, felt threatened or something like that. They killed over 100 and wounded like 700, something crazy, to where it's just people opening shots on like a herd of people. Just absolutely crazy stuff. Makes Israel look great in this whole thing, really adds to their display of war crimes and this ongoing war, which they have. I mean, just to be clear, I say war crimes because of what they are themselves posting, right? When their own hostages come out with white flags, which is surrendering under international law, and then they still murder their own people. I don't know what else you call that, because it's true. It's a war crime to kill people who are surrendering. So, and I'd imagine when the IDF has troops lined up with guns pointed at people getting food from aid trucks, that there really was not much of a threat posed. And I mean, there could have been IDF that were scared. I think the IDF have been taught from a very young age to be scared of Palestinians, and I think both, the Gazan and the Israeli people are both taught from a very young age. They're both indoctrinated from very young ages to hate the other one, to hate either Israel or the Palestinians, depending on who they are. And this hate runs very deep, and you see how that leads to so many lives being lost, and people use, the people who support the Israeli war will say, but the Arabs just hate the Jews so much they're willing to do anything to kill them and get them out of there, right? And then people who support the Muslims, or the Arabs, the Palestinians in this case, we'll use the opposite case and just talk about hate from which other perspective, and that's what feeds this fire, right? No one in Israeli elementary schools are being taught that they need to have an open and secular society where Arabs are treated as equal as them. No one's being taught that, right? No one, and this is a problem with fundamentalist religions and fundamentally run countries, whether they're Arab or whether they're Jewish, right? Because they're both fundamentalists, which believe their own religion to be supreme to the other ones, right? The Abrahamic religions are all what I call supremacy religions. They all assume, the Christians assume they are right and the other religions are wrong, and they're either going to hell or, whatever their punishment is. And the same with Muslims, and the same with Jews. They all think everyone else is wrong, right? They're not like Hindus where it's, many paths to enlightenment or whatever. So it's just more of a development. We see more of the horror stories, and this comes on the back of really one of the craziest things I have seen in my lifetime, which a U.S. Marine burned himself alive, self-immolation, and I'm blanking on his name now. Oh man, I wish I could pull it up. I don't have my computer right by, but a U.S. airman took it at DC. He went in front of the Israeli embassy, doused himself with some sort of lighter fluid or some igniting agent, and then you see him, you just hear him saying, free Palestine," as he lights his legs and his body on fire. And it's just, it is the craziest thing, and it's not really being covered in the media. And if it is covered, they don't really explain why he did it. They don't. They just call him crazy. And I was having a debate with a buddy, and do you have to be crazy to be somebody who's like this? Who's willing to set themselves on fire for what they think is a just cause? And it's really got my head spinning whether someone can be, mentally competent and do something like this. And I think people can. I think that you don't have to be crazy to do something like this. It reminds me, someone equated it to like the mass shooters in the U.S., where the mass shooting kids will go into schools and shoot them up, and then afterwards everyone just goes, "Oh, it's got nothing to do with guns. It's just that these people are crazy." It's like, yes, well, after the fact, of course, you can, on a post facto basis, you can always go back and say they're crazy. But if no psychiatrist, no people around them, no therapist, no self-identified mental health issues come up, and then an action like this happens, it's hard to actually just state, well, they're just crazy people, and crazy things happen in the world. Because I think back to the Tibetan monk who burned himself under Bob McNamara's office during during the Vietnam War. Robert McNamara was the Secretary of Defense, I believe, at the time during the Vietnam War, and he was one of the major architects of the Vietnam War. And a Tibetan monk burned himself alive underneath his office to get people to wake up. And famously, McNamara says that was one of the moments where he kind of woke up to the horrors of the Vietnam War, I guess. And I think this is kind of like, in my opinion, what Israel is doing is kind of like Vietnam mixed with like our Iraq, right? I mean, it's much more proximal than us going into Iraq. I felt like the U.S. troops in Iraq and Afghanistan were much more professional. I felt like they understand a need to create some semblance and relationship with the people on the ground who live there. I don't feel like Israel has any sense that they need to help the civilians or build up support within the civilian population within Palestine, which is really the only way you get rid of Hamas and these other governments. You're never going to do it, or these terrorist governments. You're never going to do it by just shooting people. And I think that was this U.S. Air Force person's point, with the U.S. funding the war. We're shipping Israel all their bombs. Every tax dollar in the U.S. is giving quite a few dollars to Israel so they can use it for violence. And I guess some people had enough of it, and we see today that Israel has not had enough of the violence. You wonder what's it gonna take for this stuff to stop, and we don't know yet. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. A little depressing, but